Hello, Sam.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. We're going to do a little reversal in roles today after our last chat and meetup. So I get to interview you after you've done the most epic of epics, the spine, the full fat spine race, 268 miles of it. And so, yeah, let's chat all things spiny. There's so many questions, and even not even just including feet questions that I want to know. But firstly, congratulations.
Yes, thank you. It's a bit of a come down for you, isn't it? Because last week you were interviewing Camille Herron, and now you're interviewing little old me,
Yeah,
Mr.
but she's not
Nobody.
done the spine. I think she would fully admit she wouldn't even want to. So, you're
Yeah,
you're you're
I-
just as awesome in my eyes.
she would definitely have the ultra lean by the end of the spine, that's for sure.
Yeah. Did you?
No, but the guy that came in probably about half an hour behind me did really badly, and I'd seen him sort of up the course. I can't
Mm,
remember the chap's name now, but I saw him at Alton and I thought, flipping it, I don't know how you're going to get to the end of this race because he was like sort of doubled over, his back had gone. But I'd not realised that talking to people afterwards that it was something that he'd had a few times before in races. I think he'd done it the year before and came in the same way, sort of like doubled over to one side. And he was just every time I saw him at any of the checkpoints, he was um, shall we say, not begging, but sort of trying to coerce the medics into letting him have more codeine.
oh,
Keep going.
oh, crikey. Oh, that's such a hard line for the medics to take, isn't it? I mean, it's just, yeah. What?
One of them said, I was talking to one of them that I'd spoke to on the summer race, and she was just saying it's just like a fact that some people on the race won't get to the finish without really strong painkillers.
Hmm,
Um, and I'd sort of had some knowledge of this from my summer race. So in the summer, I did Challenger North, did the top
hmm,
section, 106 miles, and I had co-codamols with me, so some strong paracetamol, codeine painkillers, and I didn't anticipate having to use them. I had a box of them from when I had like knee pain, and that someone had given to me, and obviously not the best thing to do. Always have a prescription. But I'd got them as sort of emergency use that, I'd heard that, your feet can
hmm,
get so bad that you need strong painkillers. So I got them with me, but my blisters were so bad in the summer that I was taking them from probably about Alston, which was like so probably the second checkpoint in on that race. And I took them like religiously every 4 hours until the end of the race, and it was the only thing that took the edge off the pain and suffering. And it just kind of, yeah, you got to be careful that you don't, because when on the race like that, you're kind of tired all the time, and you like question yourself: has it been 4 hours or has it been 4 days? How many hours has it been, or has it been 4 minutes since I took them? So
yeah,
you never
yeah.
quite. You're in a bit of a weird world
I don't
where
know.
time.
Is there any data on codeine? I mean, obviously everyone knows you can't take ibuprofen, but paracetamol is
Yeah,
okay. But I don't know about
yeah. Paracetamol.
codeine.
Mm. Well, codeine, I suppose it's an opiate, isn't it? So it's one of the lesser ones that, and I think I'd had it occasionally. I'd taken it when I'd had like really bad knee pain over the last couple of years. So I think I built up a bit of a tolerance to it anyway. So when I first took them, they were quite strong, and these two sort of knocked me out a little bit. But years of sort of taking them when I needed them, kind of, I think I've built up a bit of an immunity to them. So having like I was only having one tablet. So normal dose would be having two, but I was having one every 4 hours. Um, and I didn't rely, and that was on the summer race when my feet were so bad. But on this race, on the full winter race, it was as expected. So people had sort of said to me going into the race that your feet won't be as bad as the summer because the summer was a bit of a fluke. thing anyway, that it was like super torrential rain, which turned to hot weather, which made your feet swell, and then everybody's just got blisters. There was, sort of 90% of the field was struggling with blisters. But in winter, allegedly, because it's cold, your feet might rub, you might get blisters, but that your feet don't swell in the same kind of way, which was true,
Okay.
because I think by the end, by the last checkpoint in the summer, my feet were starting to swell, and I could see, like, my feet started to look like baby's feet. There was no veins or anything, no definition there, just like splodge. And my feet just rubbed constantly. Whereas with this race with the full spine, my feet didn't swell until the day after the race, when I sat in the car to come home, and like the 3.5 hours or whatever it took to get back to Derby. I
Mm.
could just feel that. I just felt like pressure on my feet, and I could feel them swelling. By the time I got home, they were like baby's feet. But fortunately, I was allowed to then get on the sofa and be waited on hand and swollen foot by the wife and girls, which is a rare occasion in our house, because there is no sympathy in our house, especially when it comes to anything related to running. So if you're ill, you're lucky to get a bit of sympathy. But if you've got something, an injury or something related to something you've done by choice, which is running, then normally there is zero empathy and care and sympathy. But for somehow for this race, it seemed to bring out the mothering instincts in my wife Kate and the girls. They rallied around and brought me drinks and propped me up and brought me painkillers and allowed me to just sort of vegetate on the sofa and look at the fire and watch the TV. So it was quite nice.
Okay, so for any of you sharp-eyed viewers who suddenly wondered why I've jumped to my sofa, we're having some technical issues here, and Sam was out of sync, which he probably was when you were on the spine as well. So, so tell me, gosh, I mean, there's so much. So obviously, you know the spine so well. You've been on the media team for the last few years. You've been on the safety team. You've worked at the checkpoints. What was it like being on the other side?
Mm. I suppose, and yeah, like you say, I do know the race sort of inside out now, having sort of briefly seen bits of it when being on checkpoint and stuff, and getting to know parts of the team. Then with the media team, basically, I saw every single checkpoint, being on media team, and sort of was everywhere at different points of the race, seeing bits of the landscape I'd not ran over myself personally. But then I think doing the summer Challenger North was the thing that kind of pieced everything together. I knew obviously going into this race that there was one section that I didn't know, which was the section from Hebden Hay up to Hawes, which is actually quite a big section. Like, it's 61 miles officially on the route, but I think I ended up doing about 63, something like that. Possibly just a few nav errors here and
Bit of a
there.
detour was there.
Yeah. Um, so I think I knew what was coming, but I didn't know what was coming, if that makes sense. I kind of knew what I was up against as far as the terrain and everything and the routes. I knew that there wouldn't really be any major surprises on the bit that I hadn't wrecked in the middle.
Mm.
Because there was, I know there was, I know all of the big climbs and everything, so I was kind of prepared for that. In the lead up to the race, the thing that I was worried about was, we had all that horrible weather leading up to the race, like over the last couple of months, where it's just been continuous, like, rain, constant all the time, and it
Mm.
always felt
Yeah.
like it was dark, raining, and cold. And that was like worst fear for the race, was it raining the whole time. Cold, you know, absolutely fine. Wind to a certain degree, not that, I know that you're either in the wind or you're out the wind or you're sheltered from the wind. So that wasn't as much of an issue. But it was the fear of setting off in Edale in torrential rain and it just raining the whole way up. And realistically, it can't rain for a whole week, can it? But
But
it did feel like that the weather had been like for the last couple of months.
it did feel like
So I
that.
think,
Yeah.
and I'd done, the recce's I'd done and stuff. That stupid recce that I did, which I feel like I had to do, which was like a 50 miler through the night. And I set off in the rain, and it rained for the whole night. And I got absolutely hammered with torrential rain for like 7 or 8 hours straight. And I got through every single bit of kit that I'd got. Um, and I felt like I needed to do that as a recce. But at the same time, I thought, that was really demoralizing. And how am I going to feel like when I'm like 4 or 5 days into the race and it's been raining nonstop and I've got no dry kit left? Because there's only so much you can take. I mean, they're really generous with the drop bag and everything. You get 20 kilos of stuff to take, and my bag was full. But there's no way it was 20 kilos. It was, a few estimates were sort of about 12 to 15. But some people had some massive kit bags, huge bags, like almost like double again the size of mine. And they
Mm,
were, nobody was really, they didn't really, I've seen them weigh them before, but I think that's only when they're like sort of suspect. If someone picks it up and it obviously feels like it's 50 kilos, then they'll weigh it and they'll make them take kit out of it. But I
yeah.
think, with all the will in the world, however big your bag is, you would never have enough dry kit to make sure that you stayed dry for 6 or 7 days if it was raining every day. So that was like my main concern going
Is
into the
your,
race. But obviously,
sorry, can I just ask, is your kit bag, is it the same kit bag that's taken to the checkpoints, or do you have different kit bags for different
yeah,
checkpoints?
no, it's the same one. So at the start, when you get your tracker fitted at the very start at Edale, that's when you hand your drop bag in, and that bag, it's got your race number on it, and it follows you all the way up the
Right.
race. So the logistics teams like do amazing really for, they're only a small group of lads, probably like 4 or 5 of them, and they're constantly ferrying the bags up and down the course. So
Mm,
you've got people that, so not only have you got like they've got to chase all the leaders, all the really fast guys, they've got to get ahead of them and drop their stuff off. Then they've got to come back for all the slow people and move their bags up and everything. And then they've got to deal with people dropping out and getting their kit bags, because people come from all around the world, come from another country, and if their race is over and they decide that they want to get on a train and go home, then they don't want to be waiting around for days for their kit bag to turn up. So for their drop bags, so they have to like rush bags around and ferry people around and stuff. So yeah, so you can never really. I don't think you can ever really have enough kit with you to sort of, if the weather was that bad. I think you just had to sort of face the fact that you're going to be in wet stuff and try and keep warm. But that wasn't the case. The case was super super cold temperatures, and I've never been. I've never ran in temperatures that cold before. I've been, years and years of going snowboarding and stuff in my misspent youth, and I was in Canada in -20 snowboarding, and I remember thinking, that's cold. But we had -15, and they said it could have been -20 with the wind chill upon Crossfell.
really?
Um,
Wow.
yeah, and it's that bit leading up to. So I was just been going through my race write up, which I need to get to you because it's too. I need to cut it down. It's too big. It's massive.
I don't
But I
care.
was rereading.
Send it. Everyone will send it. It's fine. I want it all.
And then I was looking through the section, uh, sort of dealing with that night. So coming out of Langdon Beck, so we've kind of gone into Langdon Beck, and it was hot. The weather was horrible because it turned, because I think that we'd dropped down a little bit in height. The weather had gone from being like snow and ice and everything to being a bit sleety and rainy and windy, and then everything was a bit wet and slidey and stuff because of the ice.
Mm,
And that was really miserable going into Langdon Beck. But as soon as we got to the section where you kind of crossed the river and went up to the checkpoint, it seemed the temperature just seemed to plummet again, and you were really aware of the fact that it was, very very cold.
yeah.
Got into the checkpoint, and they'd held the race that a few points. So we got in at about sort of 10 p.m. And they decided that they were going to let the race go again at 11 p.m. So it didn't really affect us because the people I was with, we were like going to have a 2 hour sleep anyway, and then set off again. So I had like a 2.5 hour sleep and missed these guys that I'd ran with, and they sort of set off, but I wasn't too fussed. But coming out of that checkpoint and going, so there's a diversion from that point. So because the weather was so bad, they cut out the section with Cauldron Snout. So
Oh
if you
yeah.
know about that section, so
Mm.
normally you follow the river from Middleton all the
Mm.
way along. And you've got these horrible boulders that are at the side of the trail, basically disappears at the side of the river. And you're
Yeah.
faced with this like boulder field.
And the
And you've got to get across.
waterfall.
Yeah, that's it. So you got to get across these boulders first. So for me, that was the worst thing in the summer because they were covered in slime. And it felt like you could make no progress on them. It was so slow. So obviously they decided that they were obviously just covered in ice and the river was high. But then you've got Cauldron Snout, which is the famous waterfall, which even in the summer, um, that was quite fear inspiring. Like you sort of everything's wet, even though it was summer and it was dry. Obviously, waterfall, there's water everywhere, spraying all over the rocks, and you physically have to put your poles away and physically climb using your hands. So it's a proper scramble up some sections that in the summer it was dodgy.
Mm.
So you can sort of see the logic in the safety team saying, no, it's a bad idea for people to go there because somebody's going to end up slipping backwards
Yeah.
and cracking head open, breaking their neck. So the diversion was that you come out of Langdon Beck and instead of going along the river, you sort of turn right and you ended up getting onto what I assume is like an access road, but because of all the snow and ice, it just there was a couple of tire marks here and there, but basically it was just
Mm.
like sheet ice and snow. Go just like a gradual climb or to hike up Nick. And it was at this point where that was the coldest point for me. It was sort of probably about 4 o'clock in the morning, 4 or 5 in the morning, sort of the witching hour sort of thing.
Mm.
Cold just seemed to just be coming at you, and you could feel it trying to get through your layers. It was weird. It was no matter how many layers you got on, so goggles on, sort of neck gaiter thing over your face. I'd got one, two, three base layer, like a base layer, a t-shirt, another puffer jacket on, and then a jacket over thick Gore-Tex jacket over the top of that. So I've got like 5 layers on, like proper mountain fluffy mitts with hand warmers in. I'd got a woolly hat on. I'd got my thing pulled up. I'd got my hood up, both hoods up. I'd got thermal leggings on, and over the top of that, like Gore-Tex waterproof trousers over that. And it
Mm.
felt like if I stopped at any point for any reason, say if I'd slipped over and twisted an ankle or really hurt myself, if I'd have stopped, then it felt like you would be in serious danger of just freezing to death. I think you'd get so cold so quickly that you would struggle to just be able to could even just taking your glove off to do something. So I took my glove off to get something out of my waist pack, and my
Mm.
hand just from that probably like 30 seconds, maybe a minute of faffing around with my hand out my glove to then putting it back in again. And bear in mind, I've got a hand warmer inside, one of those hand warmers you can put inside your gloves. I got that and I was holding on to it
Yeah.
inside my glove. It still probably took about 40 minutes for my hand to get warm again, just from
Mm.
having it out for those like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So that's probably like not the scariest point of the race, but that was one of the points where I thought there is real consequences to this race. It's not, although the route is the route, the weather is the weather. That point for me, kind of, it was like a bit of a realization that if something went wrong, you realize why you've got to have 32 items of mandatory kit that everybody whinges about and carry, and like because you've got to carry it. But if you needed that kit, then Lindley, hats off to you. We need every single bit of kit for that.
Yeah. Um, Gosh, so I love your technical description of the layers. Stu will have his will have a heart attack when you're talking about a puffer jacket.
Sorry, yeah, not a puffer jacket, but it's a, what is it? A down jacket. It's a down jacket, isn't
Was it what? I don't
it?
know. Was it a down jacket? Was it a synthetic jacket? Was it?
It was actually, the last year the Montaigne jacket, spine jackets that they gave us.
Yeah, that's
So
synthetic. Yeah.
yeah, Pertex
Yeah.
one. So I probably, in hindsight, could have done with a proper down jacket, but
Yeah.
I'd already spent a lot of money on kit, and
Yeah.
because I'd already got a couple of these Pertex jackets, I decided that I was going to use them.
Do you think, yeah, so that you would have changed, perhaps in future, perhaps if you go back, you would do that. Is there anything else you'd change about your kit? Anything else? Did anything else work for you particularly well or fail you?
Yeah, I think the only thing that I think I'd got it all pretty much worked out. I had all in my pack. I carried in my main pack. I carried all of this mandatory kit that I knew that I wouldn't have to touch. So like sleeping bag, inflatable roll mat, and bivy bag and stuff. And then other things like ice spikes and stuff like that. They were in the top so that I could get to them, but I would have to take my bag off because your bag is so heavy that you don't want to take it off unless you really have to.
Mm,
So there was only a couple of times in the whole race where I took it off between checkpoints just to do something and get something out because I felt like so I'd got pockets sort of on the front and on the side of that, and I'd also got like a Montaigne 3 litre waist pack as well,
okay.
which worked really well. I was really pleased with that because I was in the lead up to the race. I'd not really had a lot of time to train with that. I'd got it, but I'd
Mm,
not really. I'd gone out and said that I'd done training, recce run, training run in full spine kit. But actually, in reality, it's never full spine kit. It's only when you actually do the race that you realize how much extra kit that you've got to carry. So that worked really well. So in the front of there, I'd got sort of my handheld GPS, which I only used once. Actually, I only turned that on once in the whole race,
mm,
and that was on the Cheviot's because it was there was a couple of us that couldn't quite figure out where the path went. So we both got our proper handhelds out and looked at that rather than looking at your watch.
mm.
Um, Kit, I suppose the only
What's
mistake.
mm. Sorry, I was going to
Just
ask.
gonna go on.
I was going to ask what pack you had, your main
Yeah,
pack.
Montaigne Gecko 20 litre.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a 20 litre plus. So I comfortably got all of the main bits in the main body of it, and then the side pockets that are like stretchy side pockets. I've managed to sort of stuff food in them, because some stuff can fall out of those packs. They're great, but side pockets I wouldn't trust having like gloves in there because if you're twisting and stuff, they can move around and pop out and fall on the floor and you don't notice. So I kept them mainly for food. So all the whatever food I'd got, I sort of stuffed in those side pockets.
Mm.
And if they fell out, they fell out. That was that's it's only food, so it's not like losing a. You wouldn't want to lose like a one of your really expensive
Bit.
Montaigne gloves. So
Mm. Yeah, yeah,
didn't want
yeah.
to do.
And shoes?
Shoes, yes. So I started in my Merrill Agility Peak, well, the Peak Agility fives. They are so they're the blue and black things that have got a built-in gaiter on them. So they're like a traditional like trail shoe, super grippy, nice cushioning. And they've got like a zip cord type tightening thing on the inside that you sort of pull and lock. So it's not like a lace on the inside, and then it's a zip that goes from more or less the front and goes right up your ankle. So it's similar to like the Scarpa ones that you've probably seen people running in.
The ones,
So
yeah, the ones I've got are the Calibra G.
that's
Uh,
it, yeah. So,
the
so they're
sort
like
of Gibbery.
Merrill's version of them, and I absolutely loved them. So I got a pair and I brought a half a size bigger than I normally. So I'm only little, so I'm only an 8.5 normally on a good day in the shoes. So I got a size 9, and they, because I was worried from years and years of running in ultras and having what I thought was wide feet, and liking to have like a wide toe box. They felt pretty good. So in the summer I used some Saucony trail shoes. I can't remember the name of them now, which ones they were, but they, after about 100 miles, they felt too narrow because my feet was swelling. So I was worried about that. So I'd also got, as well as those Merrells, I'd also got a pair of size size 9.5 Ultra Olympus, brand new, that I'd only sort of worn a couple of times around the house, and I got them in my drop bag so that I knew that if my feet swelled, that I could put those on and my feet
Absolutely. Yeah.
wouldn't be touching the side, because they're super wide and they're
Mm.
a full size bigger than I normally wear, so there won't be any issues with that. But it wasn't an issue. So I absolutely loved the Merrells, and I wore them quite happily to the end. So that's not saying that I didn't get any blisters, because I did. So the main places I got blisters in the summer were on the side of my heels at the back. So I spent a lot of time, like everyone does before the spine, moisturizing my feet every night for about 2 months. So my feet were as soft as they could be, because it kind of goes against logic, really. I always thought that, if you had calloused feet and hard feet, that would be the thing that would stop you from getting blisters, because your feet aren't soft.
Mm.
But the reality is that if you read that book about fix your feet, how to fix your feet and everything, you realize that blisters form around a callus. So those calluses I had on my heels were the thing that gave me the horrific blisters in the summer. So I got rid of them, shaved them all off, got super soft feet. So the only issues I had with blisters was early on. I got a bit of a hot spot under my big toe on my left foot. So I stopped really early in the race, which would have been sort of dropping down out of Tor side and going up the other side. So probably, not even 20 miles into the race, I'd stopped and I took my socks off and I taped my big toe with some spare K tape that I'd got, and I changed my socks. And I think that was the thing that stopped, because that's what they say, to always be bothered, always stop and sort something out. Whereas in the past, I probably would have ignored it and waited to the next checkpoint. But I stopped and looked a bit silly at the side of the trail while everyone's sort of traipsing past at high speed, and I'm sat there
Mm.
fiddling my feet, and everyone's thinking, "Oh, his feet are going to be knackered if he's done that, if he's doing that so early." But it
Mm.
was it was it was 100% the right thing to do.
Yeah.
It sorted that out. And then the only other blister that, and it didn't really irritate me that much, was on my little toe on my left foot. It started to rub on there, so I taped that fully. And during the course of the week, that toe, the blister never broke, but it became like I've got some great photos of it. It became like a balloon, like, so the whole of my toe just turned into one giant blister that was like full of fluid, and my toenail was floating around inside this inside this balloon of bodily fluids.
Oh,
So the
joy.
the kids loved it at the end when I was like showing them. It was like almost like a little fish tank with a toenail fish floating around in it. And I can't believe it didn't burst the whole time. I was thinking at some point it's going to burst and it's going to absolutely sting and really,
Uh,
really hurt. It never did. I just carried on taping it up at every checkpoint, and
did
it never
they,
burst.
did you ever get your feet looked at? I mean, would they have burst it if they'd seen it?
Well, yeah, this is the thing, you see. So in the summer, it was all about seeing the medics. So everyone was queuing to see the medics on the way out of checkpoint and stuff and get the feet taped up. But there was a message sent out before this race saying that the medics are there for real emergencies. They're not there to be your personal K-tape applicator. Try and sort out your feet yourself. So I just assumed that the medics wouldn't touch your feet, but I know that they did for some people if they had real issues.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I kind of got into the sort of mindset that rather than waiting to see a medic, just get on with it yourself. I'd learned enough from summer race to know what I needed to do to my feet, and I think you can only really you can only really find out that kind of thing yourself by just doing it. You can't really do it in training because you're taping for a problem that's not even there. So learning to sort of react to where getting hot spots and stuff, and learning to put K tape on early and put it on areas that are gonna rub if you've had that experience in previous races. So on the whole, I was really, really chuffed with how my feet survived. Although towards the end, I always descents were always tricky anyway with your feet. So because your feet are like sort of moving around as you're coming down, and if you've got blisters on your toes, like the weight of coming downhill would sort of hurt your heel, but also hurt your toes as your foot slides into the front of your foot, sort of thing. So I knew that probably the worst thing would be towards the end of the race, coming down, descending from say hut two. So
Yeah.
this is what happened this year. So I'd naively said to Kate and the girls, because I knew that I was going to be finishing sort of Friday night, and they came up Thursday night and had the day out Friday, and then came and sort of waited at the race for me to come in. I'd got to hut two, and I'd sort of said, "Oh, it's only 7.5 miles from hut two to the finish." And in the summer, I don't know how long it took me to get down there. It was a long time, but I naively thought I'm in better shape this race. An hour and a half, and I'll be down. But actually, in reality, it was 3 hours. Yeah, it
Yeah,
took 3 hours to get
that's
down. Yeah.
bless you. That's so funny. An hour and a half.
So
I
I
mean,
was, win- I
actually,
was
you'd be winning it if you were doing it then.
Yeah, well, I was wincing with the pain of coming downhill with my blisters, and it was all ice. And obviously, by that point, it was like gale force winds as well, 70 mile an hour gusts of wind. So you were struggling to just stay upright anyway, using your poles to try and just stay on your feet. So it was a bit, yeah, it was a bit rough. So, but we got down eventually. But
Good.
um,
Well, and I mean, part of the, I mean, part of the whole challenge is managing yourself, and your environment, and that sort of continuous like self-check, making sure that you can keep going, and knowing what to do with yourself, as you say, whether it's looking after your feet, or knowing when, when to stop to put on or take off a layer, um which will prevent you from overheating or getting hypothermia. I mean, that is all part of the challenge, isn't it? So it sounds like you ticked all the boxes there.
I think going into like the first day, I'd purposely taken various bits of kit with me, um, and trying to decide when to use them. And I'd kind of figured that the start of the race I knew wouldn't be so cold. So going from starting off at Edel and going up onto Kinder, I was aware that it was sort of like plus 2 degrees or something like that. So relatively that was warm. So I wore my sort of thinner gear. So I've got like a Montane synthetic down jacket, and then a Montane like Gore-Tex jacket to wear over that, and some
Mm.
thinner gloves. And I knew that they would do me all the way to Hebden, and then I thought, I know it's going to go cold through the night, so if I'm going to change my kit, I'll do it at Hebden. So at Hebden, I'd got like a mountain equipment, really heavy, thick Gore-Tex jacket, which I knew would sort of keep out
Mm.
every bit of weather. And then obviously I've got that thicker Montane synthetic down jacket to go underneath. And I'd also got my um, can't remember what brand they are. I think the Berghaus waterproof Gore-Tex trousers, which are really heavy. So I knew that if I swapped into them, I sort of anticipated at different points being able to swap back to the thinner, lighter stuff. But
Mm.
in reality, once I'd got that heavy kit on, that was it. It just stayed on for the rest of the race. And the only time, I think there was a point where I took the jacket off. I took my jacket off, the outer jacket off, and realised that the sort of condensation and sweat had formed ice on my jacket on underneath and everything.
Oh
And
no, really? Wow.
I thought, well, I don't know what to do for the best. I feel warm, but also I don't really want to get super cold with, if you sweat and all the condensation is turning into ice, then you're going to get cold anyway. So I think I kind of just, and you're not moving, I'm not Jack Scott. I'm not moving fast. So the amount of body heat that you sort of retain by just, moving at a steady pace,
Mm,
I think it just seems, yeah. So as far as like the kit and everything, I was really happy with. The only
yeah.
thing I did do is actually I taken with me. You have to have um, warm gloves with fingers, and you have to have waterproof mitts at the minimum. So I'd got some Montane, um, really good thick warm gloves with fingers, and I'd also got some waterproof over mitts.
Hmm.
And testing them, they seemed absolutely fine. I thought they'd be up to the job. But actually, once I got to, I think it was like Hawes, it's sort of like 2 in the morning, and um, my hands were so cold, even with with both the over mitts and those gloves on. I don't
Yeah.
know what it was. I think it might have been a combination of just being hungry and tired, and sort of my body sort of
Yeah.
drawing all the heat into my body to try and keep warm. But my hands were so cold, so I was at the checkpoint. I was chatting to the hiking hairdresser, one of the can't remember, forget his name, his actual real name. That's his Instagram name. The checkpoint who's on the media team, and he was like, I've got some spare gloves. Don't know whether it's breaking the rules or not, but I've got some spare gloves if you want them. And I was like, yeah, it can't do any harm. So I took his Montane like fur lined mitts, and basically I wore them for the rest of the race because it was so cold. Even there was at no point did I feel like my hands are sweating, even
No.
with like with the glove warmers inside. They just felt perfectly regulated. So yeah, so and that's just reminded me I need to post them back to him. He's given me his address to post them back. So at the minute I've stolen them from him, but I will post them back. So if you're listening to this or watching it, I am posting them back.
Person with no name, but who is
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
um sleep. I
Mm.
take it you had more than 52 minutes of sleep,
Yes. So
which
it
is
was
what
funny
Jack
because
Scott
in
did, by the way.
yes, yeah,
Anyone
yeah,
listening.
famously, yeah. And I'm surprised he had that actually, because normally he just likes to fall asleep on his feet, doesn't he? This this race, I cut myself a bit of slack with sleep because in the summer, I went through the first night, and I was planning on doing that again, which I did, and it worked. Just make yourself really tired by going through the first night and sleep on the second night. In the summer, I got 3 hours sleep at Alston on the Challenger North, and
Mm,
I woke up and felt like a new man. And that was the only real sleep that I had during the summer race. I had like a nap at the side of the trail after that,
mm,
on the next day. Um, so my plan was to sort of have 3 hours sleep at Hawes and then set off feeling like a new man. But the reality was that, really, I only got probably an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours at the very most at Hawes, just because of how noisy the checkpoint was as people coming and going, banging doors and shouting.
oh, really?
Even with even with earplugs in and a face and like an eye mask on,
Mm,
I still, just kept waking up and woke up before my alarm. And eventually, I just got up and just thought I may as well just get on with it.
yeah.
Um, so my plan to try and sleep twice for 3 hours went out the window, and it turned into like an hour and a half there, and then the next night I think I got like another hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. So I think I estimated that over the whole week, so 6 days, I got 5.5 hours sleep.
Oh,
So it
no.
actually seems like quite a lot in spine world. When you like hear about people sort of doing it on an hour or 2 hours sort of thing. Um,
No, I mean, if you
so
compare that
I
to
want,
Jack, I mean, 52 minutes over 4 days versus
yeah,
5 hours. I don't know.
five.
It's probably not not much more considering how much longer you were on your feet for.
Yeah, I think it's yeah, it's a funny one. sleep because like when you talk about it in the real world afterwards, like you say, oh yeah, I managed to get like 5.5 hours sleep. Like if you got 5.5 hours sleep on a normal night in the week, you'd wake up the next day and you'd feel like horrendous. You'd think like, "Wow, I had a rough night's sleep."
Mm.
But the reality is that you've had that sleep for the whole week. But it's strange. It's like your whole world perspective changes on the spine. The days just become incredibly long and the nights just become incredibly short. So it still feels like you're having night and day, but they're like stretched and compressed. So your day just feels super, super, super long, and your night is just like whatever sleep you can get, and then you start again, and it doesn't feel wrong, but it does mess up your sleep cycle. So I know these last couple of weeks since I've been back, I've been for the first week I was like awake in the night, having like hot sweats and stuff for at least
Mm.
like 2 or 3 days after the race. And I know that's like something that most people have after the spine. Um, my my window for getting up and going to the toilet. So I've turned into an old man that has to get up in the middle of the night now and go for a wee. So I'd never ever, like in forever, I've never ever had to like get up at sort of like 3 or 4 in the morning and go for a
Mm.
pee. But since coming back from the spine, I have. It's like my body is still not quite
No.
got into the routine of knowing that you're going to sleep for a set amount of time and then it's okay that you can go for a wee then.
Yeah.
It's like it's still in the mode of if we need a wee, we need a wee, whatever time it is. So which is obviously what you were doing during the race.
Yeah. Yeah.
And without going into too much detail, so that was number ones were obviously anywhere. Number twos for there's quite a weird thing that I didn't realize that this would be like this, but number twos I only had two in the whole six days.
Okay.
So whether people want to
You
know
love
that
a bit of
or
food
not,
chat.
that's a bit of
Food chat's good.
information.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, if you're doing the race and you're worried about that kind of thing, like, well, where am I going to go for a poo? Am I going to have to use my poo shovel? And all that kind of stuff.
Mm.
The
Yeah. Yeah.
reality is
Yeah.
you won't go very much because I think your body is just like whatever food you're putting in, it's just using and
It's
just
just in.
turning into energy. And that's that.
It's probably in shock. It's like, oh my God, I've got to hang on to everything that's coming in.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
funny.
Food,
Oh,
energy.
fantastic. Well, what else is there? I mean, gosh, I mean, Kit
Well,
obviously.
we haven't talked about my near death experience
Oh, right.
with the
Crikey.
injury.
I need to know. Yes. Tell me all. What happened? Is this a manly near-death experience or a real near-death experience?
So it was, it almost ended my race basically.
Okay.
So it was on the Thursday of the race. So it was the section going from where was it going from? It was a section from Alston leading up to Hadrian's Wall, which is like notoriously quite a boring section,
Horrible
which
bit.
is just
Yeah.
yeah, like fields,
On a
farmers'
station
fields, and
there on the spine on the safety team. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Bog,
there's not a lot. Yeah,
mud.
bog and not a lot to see, not a lot. Not great environment, so not very interesting. So it was probably about sort of 5 o'clock in the morning, sort of at that point where you're like super, super tired before the day starts to appear again, sort of thing, and you feel like a fresh sort of zeal for the day. It was super cold, so that night it was probably like -15, I reckon 13, -14, 15, something like that. Felt super cold and damp. I was crossing a stone wall, and I'd sort of got both feet over the top of the wall, got both feet on the other side on, kind of the slabs that stick out that you
Mm.
used to sort of climb up and over them. And
Yeah.
just as I sort of pushed myself off to sort of step down to the next step, both of my feet slipped from underneath me. And I somehow managed to sort of fall forward with my poles out. Sort of in an instant, thought, it's okay, stick your poles out. So put my poles out, they hit the ground first. My left pole snapped instantly, and I fell sideways from probably sort of about 3 or 4 foot high. Fell completely sideways, um, hit the deck. So the ground was completely frozen. It was like concrete. Hit the deck, landed on my hip, and then whacked my head and knocked myself out.
Oh
Um,
shit.
yeah, so it wasn't until there was a guy that I'd passed previously. Sort of, he was walking and I was moving fairly, fairly fast. Not I say fast, it was, as fast as you move on the spine. I was, I was jogging. He was walking.
Mm.
So I passed him, and all I remember was just sort of slipping, hitting my head. And the next thing I know, he's there and he's picking me up, trying to get me to stand up. So we're not quite sure how long I was knocked out for. It may have only sort of been like 30 seconds, or it may have been a couple of minutes. We don't know. The safety team was sort of looking at the trackers to see if they could figure out how long it had been. But basically, ASOC, he who's a Gurkha runner, and I've been
Oh, I
chatting
know
to him.
him. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's coached by Jack Scott. So we were talking about, I sort of ran with him a little bit earlier on, and we were talking about the podcast and talking about Jack and everything.
Yeah.
So we sort of we were friendly, but by this point I'd sort of left him walking and I'd sort of ran ahead.
Mm.
Um, so the next thing I know, he pulled me up trying to get me to stand up, and I couldn't stand up. Every time I stood up, my left leg just gave way, and I fell over again. So this sort of went on for sort of like a couple of minutes, and then I sort of came to, and it was like, "What do you want to do? Do you want to get in touch with the safety team and stuff?" And I was like, "Well." Was very aware at that point of how cold it was. If you sort of if something happens to you, it was bad enough anyway with it being cold, but I'd kind of gone into shock straight away,
Mm.
and I knew that staying still was a bad idea. I knew that I needed to keep moving to stay warm. So I said, right, I'll get another layer out. So I grabbed another layer out of my bag and took my jacket off and got this other layer on, put that on, changed. I can't remember what sort of changed. Got some of the bits of kit on and stuff just to try and keep warm.
Yeah.
And then basically for the next sort of 4 hours, I just walked with him. So he gave me um, one of his poles. So I got two poles, and he sort of went on with one. And I just walked with him for probably about 2 or 3 hours, just trying to get my head straight. So I was aware that my head was warm and wet, and I was like, put my hand under my hat and like looked at my hand and realised it was covered in blood. Um, and I'd not even realised that I'd hit my hip. All I knew was that I'd hit my head. So I was like, I'm okay. All I've done is sort of I've hit my head. I'm bleeding. I'll be okay. So I just kept going. The sun came up. I started to feel okay again, and I just thought, well, I'm okay. Obviously not. I've got any symptoms of concussion or anything. I know where I am. I know what I'm doing. It's not like I've woken up and I haven't got a clue where I am or anything or what
Mm.
my name is. I've had concussion before. I know what it's like. And I just thought, right, I'll just crack on. And when I get to Hadrian's Wall, there's an SST point there. I'll have a word with them and just let them know that I'm the one that has fallen over, because a few of the guys that had passed us had sort of said, "Oh, we'll tell the safety team that what's happened
Mm.
and everything, so they to expect you."
Yeah.
So I got there expecting to sort of just sort of check in with them and just tell them that I'm the one that fell over and banged my head. I'm okay, don't worry.
Yeah.
I'm safe to carry on. But when I got there, they sort of said, "Oh, just come into the warm a minute, and we just need to check with the medic that everything's okay." So I went into they've got the sort of the visitor centre there, and they've got like a log burner going and everything. So it was like really nice. Got in there, had a cup of tea and stuff, having a chat with them, and the SST guy goes off on the phone, and then he comes back in and goes, "Okay, I've spoke to the medics, and we're going to retire you from the race." And I'm like, "What?
Well, no,
What?" I thought he was joking. I was
what?
like, I laughed.
No one had even inspected you.
No, well, this is the thing, you see. So I was like, I laughed and said, "Yeah, you're joking, aren't you?" And he was like, "No, no, like it's procedure that if someone's lost consciousness from a fall, then really we need to recommend that they retire from the race." And I was like, "Okay, I understand that, but I've carried on since it happened. This I've carried on for a further. So by this point, it was like 10 o'clock in the morning. This had happened at
Mm.
5 in the morning. I was like, I've carried on running and walking for 5 hours, and I've been okay.
Yeah.
I've come in here myself personally to tell you what had happened. I
Mm.
could have just carried on running and just ignored you.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have stopped me. So I'm here voluntarily, but I I'm perfectly well enough to do the race." And they were like, "Well, no, this is what they're saying. They're saying that you need to retire." And I was like, "Well, fair enough. I'm happy to retire, but I want to be seen in person by a medic, not just the safety team.
Yeah.
I want somebody to come here and tell me that my race is over and look me over, thinking I could buy myself some more time." And they said, "Right, okay, I'll have a word with them." And he came back and says, "Yeah, there's a medic coming, but you may have to wait a while for them to turn up." So this was sort of like 11 o'clock in the morning. So the medic came at 3 in the afternoon. So I'd been there
Are you
basically like
kidding?
all day, sat there waiting. But in the meantime, I got all my kit off. I was drying it by the fire and everything. I got all my gear all nice and dry and warm again and everything. And I'd had some food, sat down, and I'd been talking to the SST guys and stuff, having some photos and stuff, and having a whale of a time. But at the same time, thinking,
Must have been
"Is my
really
race over?"
anxious. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was
That's
thinking, "Is my
tough.
race over?" And I was, talking to the safety team and just saying, I understand if that's the decision, but I don't want to come back next year. I want to. I'm so far into the race, and by this point at Hadrian's Wall, you're nearly 200 miles in.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't want to come. I don't want to come. Fair enough, it's a great run, but I don't really want to come back next year. I want to. My plan was to get it done this year and move on to other things next year. Um, and they were like, "Okay, just wait to see what the medic says." And all due credit to the medic that came, because she was, instead of coming in with a preconceived idea that she was coming there to end my race, she came in with an open mind and just said, "Right, tell me exactly what happened. When was it? How have you felt since? What's happened since it happened?"
Mm,
Did a battery of tests with me, checking my eyes, checking this, checking that. Um, and in the end, she was like, "Well, it's now been, you know, 8 hours since it happened. If you were going to have any real symptoms of concussion, you would have had it by now.
mm,
I'm happy to agree to let you go under the proviso that every checkpoint you get to, every safety team you get to, you get them to sort of give you the once over and make sure that you're still okay. Other than that, it's your choice whether you want to carry on." And I was like, "Yes, let's go." So
gosh,
I
what a
kind of,
relief.
yeah, so it's sort of like 3:30 on Thursday afternoon, thinking my race was over. I set off again, thinking, "Oh, I've only got like an hour left of daylight." Whereas, by that point, I would have been right up at, I'd almost been at Bellingham
Bellingham,
by that point.
yeah.
Yeah, ready to sort of finish Friday in the day.
And you didn't get
But
that time back at all? It
no,
wasn't
no,
like they
no, you
stopped the
don't.
clock for you?
No, you don't get this back. That's it. The clock's going the whole time. So basically, I lost sort of 8 hours to just sort of sitting around, basically, and
Yeah.
wait. No, not 8 hours, probably 5 hours. I lost 5 hours, but in the
Yeah.
grand scheme of things, like ASOC, he carried on. He stayed with me for a little bit at the place while the
Mm.
safety team were there, and he carried on, and and I must have put on a bit of a pace because I managed to almost catch ASOC again at the end. So he only came in like sort of 10, 20 minutes before me.
Oh,
So I
wow.
made up those
Okay.
5 hours that I lost. I kind of made up anyway with the sort of determination to get to the
Well,
end.
you'd
But
had, I mean, the 5 hours, I suppose, in the warmth must have helped.
yeah,
Did
that's
you
it. Yeah,
get any sleep
rested.
then as
Yeah.
well?
No, I didn't sleep because it was the middle of the day and I didn't feel tired. I just sort of sat and had a load of food. So in
How
a
can you
way, it
be
was like
feeling
having
tired?
a
How can you not be feeling tired?
No, I felt good because it was daylight. I was all in the daylight, daylight hours. I always felt good. It was only ever sort of in the sort of twilight hours, the middle of the night and stuff, where I sort of felt the tiredness. Although, having said that, I'd after that point, I'd sort of put a pace on and got to Bellingham. Tried to sleep at Bellingham, but it's freezing cold there. You've been to Bellingham, you've seen the sleep room that they have there.
No.
So Bellingham it feels like it outside, even though you're inside. The room, they've got heaters in there, but it's just basically like a wooden shack. So I managed to use my sleeping bag for the first time, my Criterium sleeping bag. It worked perfectly, absolutely ace,
Oh yeah.
really, really super warm. So I've got to write that review for him. So I managed to kind of get probably an hour and a half sleep there. Probably in reality, it's probably more like an hour. And then came out, spoke to the medics again, faffed around with my kit, knowing that this was the last push. So from Bellingham, that's it. You don't see your drop bag again until the finish. So um, I knew that I needed to get all the kit that I needed out of the bag. If I needed any extra stuff, I've got to have it there. Any extra
Anything for
food
the
I needed.
Cheviots.
Yeah. So I set off from there sort of in the early hours of Friday. Um, got down to, so went through Kilda, can't remember how to pronounce it, Kilda Forest.
It's a marathon, isn't it? From Bellingham to the end, roughly distance wise.
No, no. So that's from Burness.
Oh,
It's
Burnett.
25. Yeah, so it's a 40 mile. Is it a 40 mile leg or a 35 mile leg? I can't remember. It
Okay.
might be like a 40 mile leg. So it is a decent chunk.
Okay.
Um, but it helps that you've got those markers. So you know that you've got to get to Burness, and you know that there's a safety checkpoint there where they give you food. And there's the church where you can sleep, and then from there you've got the 25 miles of the Cheviots, but that's broken into the two huts and then the finish. So it's
Yeah.
almost like that last leg is a decent chunk of mileage, like 40 odd miles,
Yeah.
but it feels doable because you know that you're breaking it up into those sections. So
It's manageable chunks.
um, yeah, so I went through Kilda Forest, and I had my same traditional hallucinations that I have on that section. So in the summer, I was seeing black bears in the forest. So my mate Ben, Ben Wells,
Yeah.
we wind each other up about seeing bears and stuff. In he sees them in Wales and stuff, and I see them on the spine race. So I saw loads of black bears. Um, for the first time this year, I saw a row of giant, absolutely huge knights in shining armor that stood at the side of the trail, and they were
Impressive.
like tree. Yeah, they were like trees that had sort of, when trees sort of have died and then they dry out and they go like silvery color, and
Yeah.
the sun was just coming on at the right angle so that they shone sort of silver in the distance, and my mind saw knights in shining armor all stood at the side of the trail with big swords and stuff. So that was a new one for me.
Funny.
But dropping down to Burness, I felt really, really tired dropping down to Burness,
Mm.
uh, to the points where I knew that I was going to have a sleep once I got to the church at Burness. So I got down there, went to the SST point, and no, in fact, did they have a sleep? They have a sleep first. I can't remember. I think I had a sleep first. I literally got to the church and decided
Mm.
that I just needed to have a sleep in there. So that is just literally just a drafty old church, tiny little thing. And everyone was just, there was probably about 4 or 5 people in there sleeping, and they just literally got the sleeping bags out and they were just laying on the floor in between the pews. So I decided that I didn't really want to sleep for too long, but I just needed a nap. So all I did was take my bag off and my waist pack off, and I lay on the wooden floor, like fully dressed, and just lay on my back and close my eyes. And I probably nodded off for sort of like 15, 20 minutes, and then started to feel really cold. So I thought that's a good sign. I've had a little sleep. I've been woken up by the cold. It's time to move on. So managed to get my kit back on, head down to the SST point. They had some hot food there, so I had coffee and some hot food. Then I went back to the church and just put some extra because they only give you half an hour at the SST point. So by the time you've got in there and had some food, the time's ticking. And I wanted to just sort out my feet a little bit more. So I went back to the church, got out my final bits of K tape that I'd got, and just plastered all my
Mm.
toes up that were rubbing. And just thought, this is it. This is the last push. Whatever
Right.
I can do to me is just got to last me to the end. Um, and I set off there feeling like I'd had a little bit of a sleep, and I felt refreshed a little bit by having some hot food, and made the climb up onto the Cheviots. And that there's a little section on there that's like is actually like a bit of a scramble where you've got to get up, you like, use both hands and climb up. And then once you get onto the top, in the summer when I got on the top of there, it was blowing a gale up there, and it felt like winter. But actually, when I got on there this time, I realised that this really was winter. So the wind was absolutely hammering it across.
Mm.
Like 50, they reckon there was 50, they reckon on Friday morning it was like 50 mile an hour winds, and then Friday night it was like 70 mile an hour gusts. So you were kind of it's so windy that you almost like using your poles to stop yourself from falling over from being blown over by the wind. Um, but I quite enjoyed that section. It was all right. I got chatting to another runner. We sort of fell in pace for a little bit. I sped up a bit more. He caught up with me at Hut One. I tried to not stay in there for too long because I know people sort of stay in there for the full half an hour, but I was I could see the finish line at this point, and I wanted to get done on
Yeah.
Friday. I didn't want it on into the Saturday. So with all that time that I'd sort of lost having to wait at Hadrian's Wall, I was keen to sort of try and make that time back up a little bit. So I literally just had a coffee in my plastic mug that I'd got, set off again, put my foot down, got to Hut 2. By the time I got to Hut 2, my feet were hurting. The climb down um, from the Cheviot down to Hut 2, even though you're still really high anyway, that was kind of excruciating again. It wasn't as bad as it was in the summer because my feet were so blistered, but this time it was just like ice and snow. So it was
Mhm.
tricky to get down. But once you drop down onto the sort of level where the hut was, that was where the winds were. That's where the 70 mile an hour winds were. The guys, the SST guys, sort of came out to sort of guide you into the hut to make sure that you weren't sort of blown over, basically. Um, so it got us in the hut. There was probably like 4 or 5 people all huddled in there. I've got a couple of photos. You see those photos of people huddled in the huts and stuff.
Yeah.
I had a cup of coffee and set off again, thinking, yeah, 7.5 miles. It's only going to take me an hour and a half to get down.
Just trot
And it took
down.
3 hours, obviously. three
Oh,
hours to you say you're half concentrating on avoiding the wind and the wind not blowing you over, and then you're trying to see where you're putting your feet because it's just like sheet ice, snow. Just trying to make sure you don't stand in, all sorts of stuff that's going to make you fall over. And then it was just a slow plod down to the road, and then once you hit the tarmac, that was all sheet ice and snow and everything, and you were having to avoid. You couldn't just walk down the road like you could in the summer. You were sort of going to the side, going through water and stuff. But by this point, you just like whatever doesn't
yeah.
matter now. And
And what does
literally
it
only
feel
like
like?
two. It feels like Kirk is a million miles away, even right up until the point where you come over the last brow of the hill. There's like one final climb that you have to get up on tarmac, and then you go round a corner, and then in the distance you can see all the lights and everything. So you see the pub, the border hotel. You see all the banner all lit up and stuff in the distance. You can kind of make out people milling around and stuff with head torches on and everything, and you just like trundling down this road, and somehow you manage to be able to get the energy to run, and you just trot down and all the lights are all there. You trot through, and it's over finally, and then you get to kiss the wall. And, and my family was there, the girls were there, Kate was there, and we just had a big hug, and we had photos and went inside, got my medal and everything, got a drink, took my shoes off, realized that I didn't really want to stay there. I just wanted to be gone. They were like, "Do you want some food?" And I was like, I probably should eat some food, but I just don't want to be here any longer than I need to be, sort of thing. Even though I love the race, um, I'm not
Yeah.
one for sort of getting sentimental with it. And I imagine myself like coming through the finish line and crying and feeling all the emotion of the race and everything like that. But I didn't. It's the same as in the summer. I'd had highs and lows, lots of lows. But as soon as I saw the finish line, I was just like, job
That's
done.
it. Done.
It's fine. It's okay.
Mm.
I'm done. I'm done. It's okay. So I kind of just was the mentality of,
Mm.
um, I'm happy to see everybody, see the media team, and say hello to everybody, get some hugs and stuff. But
Yeah.
basically, I just like got my stuff. Kate brought the car around. I jumped in the car, and we were back at the Airbnb within like 15 minutes. But I was still hallucinating. So the girls were laughing at me because we pulled up outside the Airbnb, and I could see a woman stood with a bucket, just stood there holding a black bucket. And I was saying to the girls, what's that woman doing with that bucket? Why is she stood there with that bucket? I don't understand." And they were like, Daddy, there's no woman, there's no bucket. What are you talking about?
What was it?
Um, and it was it was just the side of the house that
Like
like
tree or
things just
something?
it just merged. It was like a post box or something. It all just merged into, and I could see some woman holding a plant, like holding a bucket.
Yeah.
And even once I got in the Airbnb, got up the stairs, and my wife Kate said, "You know, do you want a shower? You need a shower. Do you want a shower?" I'm
And
like,
that's not an option.
well, I just said I can't. I haven't got the energy, and I know how sore I'm going to be if I have a shower. All I want to do is just put some. So they'd brought my pajamas with me for me. So I
Yeah.
put my like pajama bottoms on and put my spine t-shirt on, and literally just like rolled into bed. Um, and I closed my eyes, and all I could see was just like I could see fields, I could see gates, I could see head torches, all sort of still shining in my brain. And the brain,
Yeah.
hadn't switched on. Somehow I like managed to sleep. And in the morning I woke up and my pillow was covered in blood from my head injury.
Your head.
So I had
God.
to
Yeah.
apologize to the Airbnb host that I'd probably ruined one of his pillows. So he didn't mark us down. So
Had
on our
had
Airbnb.
you had that looked at? I mean, had it been like bandaged?
The medics had looked at it and they'd they'd noted that it wasn't an actual cut. It was just a scuff that so it was like a scrape. So it was a
Okay.
scrape, sort of probably about sort of like a centimeter
Mm.
wide, where my head had just hit the ground and it was more of like an impact thing. So it not. Fortunately, I suppose wearing a woolly hat and a head torch had stopped some
Mm.
of the blow of
Yeah.
hitting the frozen ground.
Okay.
But the thing that was the most disturbing was the lump that had developed on my hip. So um, I'd not realised at the time, but when I fell, I'd landed on my hip first and then whacked my head.
Right.
Um, and I'd not noticed that while I was running until like later on in the race. I noticed that there was a lump that had just come up, sort of the size of a. Well, eventually it turned into the size of probably like not quite a tennis ball, like half a tennis ball, sort of on my hip where it had hit.
All right.
And instantly I got bruising. So over the course of like the next sort of few days after the race, um, this bruising sort of spread across my front and down into my groin area, um, and unusual colours in places where they shouldn't be. So that was quite
Gosh.
disturbing. So on the Monday, instead of going back to work, which I was supposed to do, I took myself along to A&E because the medics sort of said, you know, your head is okay, that's fine. You'll have an egg there and you'll have a bit of a scab that will
Right.
heal up. The the hematoma that had developed on my hip from hitting the ground.
Mm.
I needed to get that looked at. If it didn't go down within a few days, then
Yeah.
I needed to get it looked at. And because it just kept growing and the bruise kept spreading, I thought, oh,
Mm.
I best get it looked at. So I went and got myself down to A&E.
Mm.
I just had them check it, and they just said, you know, don't worry about the bruising. That's literally like the blood draining down. Gravity is taking it down that direction.
Yeah.
It's nothing to worry about. But I've still got the lump. It's now the size of probably like a golf ball on the side of my hip.
Can we see it?
Hey,
Can we see it?
do you really want to?
Go on. Go on. As long as it's not too low.
You probably can't see it actually.
No.
Can't you see
Oh,
there?
look. Oh, yeah. No, that's horrible.
Yeah, it is
Ew.
horrible. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
gross.
so it's the bruising's gone, but the lump
Oh,
is
weird,
still there.
isn't it? That's quite
It
high though,
is.
isn't it? That's not your hip bone,
Well, it is right on the top of my hip.
is
Yeah,
it?
so where the very highest point of your hip bone, it's level with that. So I think that's where I must have just literally hit that and that ground. Yeah, so
Oh.
all excited, fun and games, but so I think on reflection, it could have been very different. I mean, I could have knocked myself out and not been found by
Mm,
somebody.
mm,
You know, been really knocked out. I don't know whether I would have woken up in the cold or whether I would have just slowly got hypothermia while somebody was coming. I'd imagine obviously the safety team would have been alerted to me not moving for more than
yeah.
10-15 minutes or something.
Well,
Um,
I can, yeah, definitely. I think certainly from my time on the safety team, someone is watching every dot all the time. And we would get the call the moment a dot hadn't moved for like 10 minutes. It would be they'd be checking, have they called in? Have they said they're going to have a sleep?
mm,
Who's nearby? And yeah, immediately you're kind of you're put on alert, right? Need to go and check this out. So I think that's one of the, it is it's an impressive logistical machine, the whole event. There's no doubt about it that what the level and the detail that goes into organizing everything is just mind-boggling, isn't it?
yeah, I think I always a few people have sort of said to me, do you not feel like super worried about the fact that you'd like fall and knock yourself out and stuff and where you were. And I was like, yeah, yeah, the reality of it did sort of sink in. But at the same time, like you say, you know that you're always being watched and that somebody's always there keeping an eye on you. So after I'd had the fall and I'd checked in with the SST and then the medic had let me go, every single safety team, every single checkpoint that I got to, they all knew ahead of me. They're like, you're 176. You're the guy that banged his head. How are you doing? And they always checked on me and just made sure that I was okay to carry on because that was basically the caveat that they gave me for carrying on was that you've got to check in
Yeah,
with all the safety teams and all the
yeah.
medics as you go through. So yeah, so full credit to the race for
Mm,
and all that safety kit, all the gear that you carry is all there for that reason. The reason why you have a tracker, even if you whinge about it digging into you and stuff, it's all there for your safety. And yeah, there was never a point where I thought I'm on my own. There's always somebody ahead of you, always somebody behind you, and always somebody watching your dot. So all in all, yeah, on reflection, I suppose I'm glad that I got to finish the race. I feel like I was fortunate to be able to finish the race. It's probably a good thing that then there wasn't a medic there and that I had to wait because they probably could have made that decision and just said, no, you can't carry on without giving me the chance to sort of wait for
mm,
8 hours to pass. So in some ways, it was probably a good thing that although I felt like I wasted like half a day sat around doing nothing,
mm,
in hindsight, it was the thing that let me finish the race. And I've been very vocal about not going back again in any hurry to do the race again. I know that I can do it faster, and I know I can make better decisions on sleep and things like that, and food. So I know I could knock a day off if I went back,
mm,
but I don't need to. It's fine. I'm okay. In fact, next year I'm looking forward to being back on the media team and seeing getting to see all the best bits of the race without all of the crappy bits,
Trauma.
all the trauma
Yeah,
and the horrible bits. So I'm looking forward to getting back to hassling people that are a lot better runners than me, and seeing how they do how they do so well at the race and stuff. So I love the race. I feel like I'll always be around the race in one way or another. But as far as doing it again,
no,
I'm going to
you don't
leave.
need
I'm
to.
definitely going to. I don't need to do it again. I've had the full spine experience. I've had John Bamber's spicy noodles at Greg's Hut.
Yeah,
You know, I've visited
the
pits on the
lasagna,
Cheviot,
Austin.
Banya, Alston. I've had every single bit of, the spine experience that you can have, all the things that I get jealous of the people that do the race every
Yeah,
year. I've had it all. So
and you
I'm
had.
perfectly.
I know it was cold, but you actually had great weather in a way.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
had
Yeah. I
good,
wouldn't change. I wouldn't.
good,
Yeah. Yeah.
spiny, properly snowy,
So,
epic
well,
weather.
like interviewing like Damo a few times. I remember him sort of saying that you always the cold and snow is the weather that you sort of envisage for the race, and that's what you
Yeah.
want. But the reality is, it's probably going to be rainy and miserable and horrible.
Mm,
So I'll take cold and snowy, super
yeah.
cold over rainy any day. So I'm perfectly happy with the race. And as I said on video, which my wife videoed me saying, I don't need to do the race again. I've done it. I'm quite
She-
happy. I think.
she's going to keep
So
that.
she's got video, yeah, video evidence of me saying I'm not doing the race again.
Well,
She'll hold me.
yeah. I mean, I think it's great. I think you've done it. I mean, I'm still don't not definitely not ready. I'm still very happy when I can to volunteer. Um, I still look at you guys doing it and just think, oh yeah, that's beyond me. Um,
I think the fitness side of it is, I think if you've not trained enough, you will suffer, but
mm,
you're going to suffer anyway. So I think I think it was just like another level of suffering that if you didn't train well enough for it, you would suffer. But
yeah,
everybody suffers. Jack Scott suffered, no matter what impression he gives. Everybody suffers on that race, regardless of how fit you are.
yeah,
But if you are fit, then it makes it a bit. It just makes it a little bit more durable.
yes.
My training wasn't perfect going into it, but I was happy with the mileage I'd done and the wreckage and everything. I don't think I could have realistically done much more than I did.
Ah, I remember you
Uh,
going out. We spoke the night you went out on that 50-mile night run, and I just remember thinking, wow. I mean, that's dedication to go off to do a
yeah,
training run, 50-mile training run at night.
yeah,
That's
it
pretty
was.
good. By the
um,
way, he's a coach as well, in case you want to know.
I wouldn't recommend that to anyone as a coach. But yeah, that was just something I felt like I needed to do. But yeah, as far as like I think so, my legs hurt for like the first 24 hours. My quads were sort of really sore, like getting into sort of hawes. But then after that, it just like the pain of your legs from running just seems to just kind of disappear weirdly. You
Mm,
kind of just keep going, and the pain doesn't get any different, doesn't get any worse, but it doesn't really get any easier. It's kind of a hard one to describe. I think your body just turns into a spine machine, and you just keep going. And I think that if you're complaining that your legs are hurting on the second day, like if your quads are hurting and stuff, that it's probably that you've gone too fast, maybe.
mm.
I don't know. And then, I mean, but then we saw that, didn't we, this year? Like the first, like that group of 11 guys that were all out the front going as fast as they could. Only four of them finished the race.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Gosh.
it pays to be a little bit slower at times.
Well, definitely. And I mean, are you jogging? Are you still jogging towards the
um,
in bits? I mean, or are
Yeah,
you?
yeah.
Yeah,
There was plenty of times like I was going over the Cheviots. There was sections that I was like I wasn't I wasn't running all out, but I was running definitely.
yeah, yeah.
It's strange. There's like some sections where it just feels there's some sections where you can't run.
Mm,
There's some impossible bits where it's, you'd be crazy to try and run some of it because of the
Yeah, the
terrain and
train. Yeah.
gotta just plod on. But there's some sections where, yeah, like going over the Cheviots with the flagstones and stuff, when you could see them and you could run on them and you knew it was safe to run. Some bits that had sort of blown out by the wind and was just sort of grassy and stuff, and you knew that you could run on it. Yeah, I
Mm.
was running and overtaking people on sections. Most of Hadrian's Wall, I ran again this year. I did in the summer. That was one of the sections I
That
really.
Hadrian's Wall is horrible because that's so undulating, isn't
It
it? That's
is,
a
yeah, it
real
is
killer.
that first bit is, but there was a diversion because of they diverted it because of the sycamore tree. There's like a massive diversion in
Oh,
place
is
because
there?
yeah, so you don't do some of the really up and down, up and down. It kind of takes you around the side of it,
Oh no.
so that made it a little bit easier. Yeah, I've got a
That
photo of it. So,
is that for you? Is that for the race, or was that
yeah,
just
for the race.
generally
Well,
they?
no, it's
Oh,
actually it is a proper diversion that's been put in place for the Pennine Way because of keeping people away from the site. Yeah.
grr.
Yeah, I mean, I still got a photo. The photo I got was from a distance of it, but it's still, the
You.
the iconic shape
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
basically the tree's missing in the middle. So
Okay.
a shame,
Oh well,
shame.
yeah. You need to send me lots of pictures.
Yeah, I got some of the really good quality ones as well. I actually got my hand in my pocket and paid for a couple of the high resolution ones from Adam and Jamie. But Jamie, actually, I'm going to hold you to this. He sent me a message saying that he was going to let me have all of his photos of me for free. So I'll hold you to that.
Okay.
So
Well,
I'll have
we'll do a big plug for Jamie Rutherford.
yes,
Uh, and of course, Adam. Adam is Wild Aperture, isn't he?
yes, Wild Aperture. Yeah, and
Yeah,
then there's
Adam Jacobs. Yeah,
Adam Jacobs, and then there's Andrew Hendry photography as well. And
yeah.
then the hiking hairdresser. Sorry, mate, I forgot what
Hairdresser.
your actual real name is.
At
Uh,
hiking hairdresser.
yeah,
Everyone follow the hiking hairdresser. Hopefully he'll get a ton of followers. I want to know who the hiking hairdresser is now. I need to go and check his account
yeah, find him on Instagram. Yeah, and I will post those gloves
out.
to him. I promise.
Yes, do. Oh, well, fantastic. Thank you, Sam. Epic journey.
Mm.
Um, you've underlined again for me that I don't need to do it just yet. Um, but
Never say never, though. Never say never.
no, never say never. Never say never. Maybe when I grow up. But yeah, thank you very much for talking to me.
That's all right. No problem. My pleasure.